Hello, my name is Tiffany Moss, and on behalf of the YLD Women in the Profession and No Limits Committees, I'd like to thank you for joining today's webinar, Mentorship and Sponsorship, How Young Lawyers Can Use Their Network to Bolster Their Career. Today's webinar will follow a panel format. We have three very talented panelists who I will briefly introduce to you. The first is Kea Cole, and Kea is the Interim Director of Career Services and Alumni Relations at University of San Francisco School of Law, where she serves on the University Council for Diversity and Inclusion and the School of Law Diversity Committee. She also chairs the School of Law's Judicial Clerkship Committee, and prior to joining the School of Law, Kea practiced law for nearly a decade. She currently holds several leadership roles on various ABA committees and councils, as well as the National Association of Law Placement Regional Resource Council. Next, we have Joy Cush. Joy is a partner at Johnson Cush PC. Joy handles a variety of family law cases, including complex custody disputes, high net worth marital estates, and post decree issues. She is very active in the American Bar Association, the Colorado Bar Association, and the El Paso County Bar Association. Joy also holds several leadership roles for these organizations. Finally, we have Choi Portis. Choi is a Detroit native, and she is the Deputy General Counsel for the City of Detroit Water and Sewage Department. In her current role, she handles complex litigation matters, supervises outside counsel, reviews department contracts, and serves as counsel to the department director and the Board of Water Commissioners regarding various legal issues. Choi is very active in the American Bar Association Young Lawyers Division and serves as a mentor to many, and also she serves as a tutor to bar candidates through the Wolverine Bar Association. This was just kind of a snapshot of the impressive credentials for our panelists. However, more details will be provided to you in the information that will follow today's webinar. Just to kind of briefly share with you the difference between mentorship and sponsorship. Mentorship relationships are those that your mentor provides you with advice, whereas sponsorships are where you have someone that advocates for you on your behalf. Your sponsor is usually someone that is in a position of influence. Just a few key facts about mentorship. Mentors have mentees. Your mentor could be anyone in a position with experience that is desired by you as the mentee. And they, as I mentioned before, offer advice and support. Mentors support mentees through formal or informal discussions about how to build skills, qualities, and confidence that are required for career advancement. Also, mentors help mentees craft a career vision. Mentors give mentees suggestions on how to expand their network. They provide feedback to aid mentees' personal and professional growth. They offer insight on how mentees can increase visibility through finding key projects and people. And mentors passively share the unwritten rules for advancement in their organizations. Where sponsorship is different, sponsors have proteges. And a sponsor, as I alluded to earlier, is a senior level staff member who's invested in their protege's career success. Sponsors promote proteges directly using their influence and networks to connect them to high profile confidence for career advancement and assignments, people, pay increases, and promotion. Sponsors also help drive proteges' career vision. At this time, I'd like to move on to our panelist questions. I will start with Kea. Have you been mentored and or sponsored by a more experienced attorney as a law student or new attorney? And if so, how did that relationship form?
Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you for having me on the panel today. Yes, absolutely. I've had mentors throughout my career. During law school, I was fortunate enough to connect. I went to law school in Los Angeles. I was very active with several student organizations and acted as the student liaison, the law student liaison to several bar associations as well. And through those connections, I was able to meet attorneys that were practicing in the field and in areas that I was interested in, and really utilize those connections to facilitate mentorship relationships with attorneys in LA with whom I still keep in touch with. And that has definitely been the case as well throughout my legal career. As a new attorney, I got involved with the Young Lawyers Division in New Mexico where I was practicing, ended up being the chair of the New Mexico Young Lawyers Division, and through that organization was able to connect with more tenured practitioners in the New Mexico legal community and create relationships with mentors, again, with whom I still stay in touch with and still reach out to and rely upon for advice and mentorship for my career.
Thanks, Kaya, for that information. Joy, same question. Can you tell us about how you've been mentored or sponsored by a more experienced attorney early on in your career, or even as a more experienced attorney now?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you again, Tiffany, for inviting me to speak. And I would say that I would focus on my sponsor, or one of my sponsors, which would be my law partner, Dave Johnson. He is an older attorney. He saw that I had a lot of drive, ambition, and acknowledged that I had some good skills that he wanted to help shape in becoming so that I can become a really good, successful attorney. And through his sponsorship, my entire career has skyrocketed. He's the past bar president of the Colorado Bar Association, as well as he's held several leadership roles throughout the state and local bar association. And because of him, I've grown the business. I've grown my abilities as an attorney, and he's put me in positions that I never thought that I would be in as such a young attorney. I'm only 33 years old. I've only been practicing for 8 years, but I'm the current chair of the Colorado Bar Association Young Lawyer Division. I serve on the Colorado Supreme Court Task Force for Wellness. I've been in several leadership roles in the Board of Governors and the Board of Trustees here at the local Bar Association. And when you're exposed to those kind of opportunities, naturally you get a very organic referral source. So as a small firm owner, that's been really valuable to me because through my leadership roles, I get people referring me clients left and right, and I don't really have a need to market because of that. So that's been an added benefit to having somebody, who has had a lot of faith in me as a person, as a leader, who's put me in these positions, and then now has allowed my business to grow because of it. So.
Great. Thank you for that information. Next, I'll speak with Choi. Choi, I know you have experience currently mentoring individuals that are in law school and newer attorneys, but can you kind of give the audience just some kind of background on how you personally were mentored or sponsored?
Sure. So I definitely have to accredit my mentorship to my very first boss. He was kind of an attorney who kind of took me under his wing, kind of showed me the ropes and really how to practice law. I was able to kind of learn really relatively quickly from him, and in that, I ended up being able to kind of progress my career forward from what I've learned from him. I have, on the other end of the spectrum, kind of used him in some of my cases as like a mediator or as part of a panel when I was using alternative dispute resolution conventions to kind of litigate my cases. And so he's been a wealth of knowledge. He's been an awesome resource. And then along the way in my practice and in my involvement in bar associations, I've also developed mentors in that area, in that realm, that have also been just a tremendous contribution to my progress and my growth as an attorney.
Okay, Joy, thank you for that information. So I'll start with Joy. Joy, can you tell us what traits you think make someone a good mentee or sponsoree?
So I think that you need someone who's willing to listen to you and provide you with sound ethical guidance. You don't need somebody who's going to sit there and lecture you or constantly criticize you. You just need somebody that can just point you in the right direction and give you critical advice on how you can be a better attorney, how you can be a better person, and how you can grow personally as well as career-wise. I mean, you need to make sure that you have somebody who's well-rounded and not somebody who's just going to, pick on you every time they have an opportunity to do so. I mean, while they might have good intentions, sometimes that can often make you feel like you're inferior, which doesn't help your growth. But yeah, so going back again, I think that you need somebody who can listen to you and again provide you with sound ethical guidance. And I want to stress ethical because sometimes we think we find really good mentors or really good sponsors, but that sometimes they might be pointing you down the wrong direction. So always make sure that you're asking yourself if you're following in the right footsteps.
Thanks, Joy. Joy, same question for you.
In terms of being a mentee, I think that you have to have an open mind. You have to be receptive. You have to be able to accept constructive criticism. As a mentor, I think you have to have a very special place in your heart for service, because I know sometimes it can't be easy to mentor someone who doesn't know what you already know or may not necessarily be as receptive to some of your suggestions. I think you have to have a motivating spirit, meaning that you have to be able to motivate a person even when they don't believe that they can do things. I think that you also have to be patient in both roles as a mentor and a mentee. You have to be patient in allowing your mentor to kind of guide you through the process, and you also have to be patient as a mentor in allowing your mentee to grow and develop into who they are and who they see themselves becoming as an attorney.
Okay, thank you, Joy. And Kaya, same question for you. What do you think makes someone a good mentee or sponsor?
Yes, I think that's a really important question. So I work at a law school, University of San Francisco School of Law, and 3 years ago we launched an alumni mentor program, and so I was involved with launching it, and I've been managing it for the last 3 years, and I definitely think that there are best practices when it comes to being a mentee or sponsoree. I think that it's important to realize how busy mentors and sponsors are and make sure that you're really organized and intentional and deliberate about communications and follow-up and being respectful of mentors and sponsors' time. And I also think it's important to be authentic because I think you get the best out of a mentor or sponsor relationship when you're authentic. And I think obviously the relationships are different, but speaking about a mentee, I think a mentor can really offer advice on a whole host of topics. When you're in law school or when you're a new attorney, there are different questions that you might have as you're navigating your career. or navigating law school or courses, or navigating bar association involvement, or navigating issues in your job. And so I think it's important to be authentic and to have really down-to-earth conversations with your mentor, of course, as long as you feel comfortable and you've established that type of relationship.
Thank you, Kaya. Choi, so do you believe that the type of mentoring and or sponsorship that someone would need as a new or young lawyer changes based on maybe the type of firm they're at, or if they're maybe doing private practice versus government practice? And if so, why?
So I think that in general, just with the practice of law, period, be it corporate, be it criminal, be it civil, be it in-house government, I think across the board, it's a little bit of the same. Of course, once you get into the nuances, I think that it gets a little different. For some areas of the law, things are very fast-paced. I'll give you an example of myself. So the firm that I worked for when I first started practicing, they were a small boutique plaintiffs firm, but they did a ton of litigation. So everything was very fast-paced. So I had to learn how to pick up on things faster. And because we were a smaller firm, I got an opportunity to do some things that I wouldn't have gotten a chance to do if I were in a larger firm. But I do feel like the mentorship piece is a little different. So if you're in a smaller firm, of course, it's a little bit more contact, a little bit more intimate in terms of the mentee mentorship relationship. When you're at a larger firm, sometimes the partner may have a lot of things going on and not necessarily be able to check in with the mentee as often, but the relationship is still there. In government, I feel like you do have that intimate situation again, because in some certain government offices, like the one that I'm in currently right now, there's only 4 attorneys in our office, and so we have direct day-to-day contacts with each other and bounce ideas off of each other. Whereas in a larger setting, sort of like the Wayne County, which is the county that Detroit sits in, the Wayne County Corporation Counsel's office, they have well over 100 attorneys in their office, and so that mentor-mentee partnership may be a little bit closer to what it would look like in a larger law firm setting.
Thank you, Choi. Kaya, do you believe that the type of mentoring and sponsorship you need as a new lawyer changes based on the type of law work that you're doing? If so, tell us why.
I think we all know that attorneys generally, especially in this type of economy, pivot their careers based on their areas of interest, wanting to be intellectually challenged and stimulated, wanting to have better work-life balance, all of those things. So I would say that, yes, I agree with what Choi said about the different types of work environments, but I also do think that the mentors and sponsors that you need as you're navigating your career will change based on what you are seeking out in your career and what your career goals and objectives, as they change, you will want to seek out. You may want to seek out additional mentors and sponsors that would be able to address questions and issues and advice that you need as you're navigating your career. So I do agree that it does change based on the work environment and the type of organization that you're working for, but I think it also changes as your career goals and objectives change.
Okay, and Joy, do you mind answering the same question?
Yeah, I really don't have much to add to that. I think that Choi and Kaya definitely hit everything that I would discuss. Ultimately, though, I would also just throw out there that you should find a mentor or sponsor, again, that you just feel comfortable talking to, and someone you feel, as Kaya said, someone you feel like you can be authentic with. So.
Okay, thank you. So, Joy, just to kind of touch base back with you, can you kind of tell us if you've had any experience serving as a mentor or sponsor to someone? And if so, what experiences or feedback have you shared with them?
Yeah, at this early stage of my career, I have not had the opportunity to serve as a sponsor yet. I have served as a mentor for several young attorneys, and the things that what I tell them up front is, A, obviously be authentic, feel comfortable to ask questions, and it's okay if, I often provide or encourage my mentees to apply for leadership positions or apply for certain jobs. And I definitely follow up with them about that. And I write letters of recommendation. And sometimes I feel like some of them get a little uncomfortable, like they feel like they can't say no. And all I would say is that it's okay to say no to your mentor, or if you feel like you feel like the relationship is not going the direction that you need it to go, it's okay just to say, hey, I really appreciate your advice, but I'm looking for something different. And maybe that mentor could find a different opportunity or even just a different mentor for you that would help you again grow professionally. I've been very fortunate with all my mentees, though. In general, they've been pretty much receptive. But again, like I said, sometimes I feel like they feel like they can't say no, and that's okay. I also think it's important. At least where I practice law, it's a very small legal community, both locally and actually statewide. I feel like you get to see the same people over and over again. So I tell my mentees, your reputation's everything. So it's really important to remember not to burn bridges, but more importantly, to always be professional and ethical when practicing law. So I really stress that in my relationships with my mentees. And that's something that my mentors and sponsors have really stressed on me as well. So that's my 2 cents.
Sounds good. So I have a follow-up question for you. So in situations maybe where you might find in a new lawyer who perhaps is maybe feeling a little insecure that they may not be up to the challenge of signing up for, a new role or a new fellowship or program, what type of advice would you give to those um, mentees?
Well, one of the things, I didn't mention this before, but I really firmly believe in a balance between work and life. So when a mentee kind of gives me that feeling that they're not really up to the challenge of the time, or they just are a little unsure. First, I try to have that real, authentic conversation with them about, okay, what is really your apprehension here? Is it your confidence, or is it time, or is it, you just don't feel like you can add one more thing to your schedule because you're already really busy? So I try to have that conversation first. But to mentees that can't do that, I mean, that's what you have to talk to your mentor or your sponsor in an authentic way and be real and just say, listen, these are my concerns, and talk through it. Because sometimes, especially with young attorneys, it's just confidence. It's just feeling like you can't do it all. And you can't do it all, of course, but there are ways to balance it all. I mean, all of the panelists, including you, Tiffany, we're all really involved in our community, and we all have very successful careers. I have no doubt that we also have a successful social life as well. You can balance it all in a way that makes sense for you. You just have to figure out how to make that happen. And in order to figure out how to make that happen, you should have that conversation with your mentor or sponsor.
Okay, thank you. Kaya, same question. What types of experiences or feedback have you shared with your mentorees or sponsorees?
Thank you. I think so. It's obviously a very individualized process, and I have both mentored and sponsored during my legal career, but then also in my prior careers in various situations where I was managing teams and working with colleagues and other professionals in for example, operations management and academia. And of course, in my new role here at University of San Francisco School of Law, there are a lot of opportunities for both mentorship and sponsorship with some of the more junior staff. I think that it's important, advice that I have shared. I'm very action oriented, so I want to obviously get to know my mentee or sponsoree, find out what their short-term and long-term goals and objectives are, introduce them to people that may be able to help and advise them along the way, broaden their mentor and sponsor circles, and then work with them as issues and concerns come up along the way. Talk to them, make sure that I'm communicating with them regularly, talking with them about what they're experiencing in their career, talking to them both about their roles at different organizations, but then also talking to them about professional organizations, bar associations, how to grow as a leader in those communities as well. And it is very individualized because each person, of course, is unique, but then their trajectory and their path and their journey is unique and changes along the way. So just making sure that there's regular communication and, like Joy said, really openness, honesty, transparency about what's going on, how I can help. And if I don't have the right advice or I don't have access to information or resources that my mentee or sponsoree needs, looping in my amazing friends, colleagues, and network to help me. As you know, I know it's become cliche, but it really does take a village, and I rely upon the ABA has been wonderful for that for me, and I know for many people that I have this amazing network, both here in the States and abroad, that I can always count on and rely upon to help with that mentorship and sponsorship.
Thank you, Kaya. Choi, can you tell us about some of the experiences or feedback that you've shared?
Some of the experiences that I've shared to build relationships with my mentees. So, I don't know, maybe this is my southern root, but just going out for coffee or just having lunch with your mentee, going out to brunch or something like that, just to less formalize the relationship. I think sometimes when you have a mentor-mentee relationship, sometimes your mentee can get a bit intimidated because they feel as if they don't know what to say or you're not relatable to them because you're kind of a person that is in a position that they're trying to get to. And so I feel like if you make the some of the interactions less formal, I think that helps. I also think that even like helping and assisting your mentee out. I know there's been times where I've had legal issues and I'm like, I can't figure this out. And I'll have that phone conversation with one of my mentors, and it's been really, really helpful. On the other hand, I've also provided the same type of assistance and resources to newer attorneys who consider me a mentor, as well as law students who are kind of stressed out about the bar exam as well.
Thank you, Choi. Kaya, what advice would you give to young lawyers who are interested in building their network and finding people who will mentor and sponsor them? I know you've been very actively involved in the ABA, so if you could share just kind of your thoughts.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think this is really an important part of all of this is continuing to build relationships and gather information that will help you along your career and in your life. And I know that I'm a people person. Choi knows me well. I love people. I love meeting new people. I love talking to people. And I know not everyone's like that. I know that there are people that are more introverted. So I think that sometimes the one-on-one interaction can be uh, more accessible to someone that's introverted rather than sort of going to a big bar association event. Maybe go to a big bar association event, meet a lot of people, but then follow up one-on-one for coffee or lunch or something like that. And I think the way that you do build your network is by getting involved with professional organizations, bar associations, and also accessing the networks that you already have. So if your college alumni network, your law school alumni network, the leaders in the bar associations, whether it's local, state, or national bar associations, those people are volunteers that have put their name out there to be mentors and sponsors to new lawyers and to law students. And if you go to any of the websites for any of those local, state, or national bar associations, all of their contact information is listed there for the reason that they want people to reach out to them. I love when people reach out to me and ask me questions or want to meet for coffee or lunch and talk about their career. I love meeting new people, and I have found that that is the case, definitely of bar leaders, because like I said, they have chosen to volunteer and put themselves out there as a resource for new lawyers and law students, and really everyone, lawyers in the community. And so I think that's a good way to do that. And I think what I have found is that the momentum really builds. So once you meet someone, and something that I always tell students that I counsel here at the law school, as with your personal relationships, you're not going to click with every person, potential mentor or sponsor that you meet. And that's okay. I think that it's better to really spend the time with the people that you really do click with and find out from them what organizations and bar associations they're involved with. Do they have other friends and colleagues that they can introduce you to? And as you do that, your network continues to grow.
Thank you, Kaya. Joy, same question for you. What advice would you give to new lawyers who are interested in building their network and finding people to mentor or sponsor them?
So a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm actually a introvert, and for me, it was really hard out of law school to figure out what to do. I went to law school in upstate New York, and I graduated in 2010, so the economy was still not great. Didn't really know where to turn, but just started to show up to CLEs, and I started volunteering my time. Eventually, I realized that New York was not where I needed to be and moved back home to the state of Colorado. And same thing, I just started volunteering my time. I first started volunteering at the Colorado Legal Services. Since I was admitted as an attorney in New York, I was able to practice in Colorado, and so I started meeting people through that organization. Slowly, I was thrown into the local bar association, started volunteering again, just put myself out there. And it was hard. I mean, as an introvert, it's not easy to constantly throw yourself into social environments, and not only that, follow up after that social event to ensure that whoever you spoke to remembers you and hopefully can schedule some sort of coffee or lunch in the future, talk to you more. It takes a lot of energy and it's exhausting, but it's worth it, because once you meet one person, that one person can introduce you to 5 others, and then it goes on and on and on from there. So I guess my best advice would be just show up. I mean, and be creative. It's not always just you don't always want to focus on just legal organizations, but other professional organizations. Like the Women's Chamber of Commerce is a great starting place. There are several professional groups, at least, that are here in Colorado where you can be part of the Rotary Club, for example. There are the Kiwanis Club. There's just some nonprofit young professional groups that are usually in other cities other than just Colorado, but other states and other cities where you can just show up for a brief cocktail and then leave quickly, which is usually my thing as an introvert. Overall, though, I agree with Kaya that you have to follow up. You have to remain open-minded, and you have to remain persistent if you want to grow your network. It's Again, I get it for all you introverts out there. It's exhausting, but at some point it starts to click and become really easy, and then all of a sudden, like I am where I'm at today, I'm all of a sudden the mentor, and potentially sponsor in the future. And so my need to do as much social networking is not as strong, so that I can go back to my old introverted ways. So,
Thank you, Joy. Joy, what advice would you give to young lawyers trying to build their network or identify mentors or sponsors?
So I would suggest, just kind of as Kaya and Joy both indicated, getting involved in your bar associations. I'm a bit of a bar junkie, and unlike Joy, I'm an extrovert, so I need people to thrive. And so right after I became an attorney, I started getting involved in like my local bar association, and then in my State Bar of Michigan Young Lawyers section. Then I started going to ABA conferences, and one thing that I've noticed, and that advice that I would give to young lawyers thinking about mentors, is that a lot of these bar associations, be it the ABA, your local bar, or your state bar, they do have those mentors that are putting themselves out there saying, hey, I want to be involved in your development and involved in kind of the next level and the next step of the practice of law. So I would suggest that. Also, sometimes we have a tendency to get really bogged down in our bar association and being a lawyer that we forget that we're real people. And so I would also suggest that those young lawyers get involved in other organizations that don't have anything to do with being an attorney. You can get mentors there, and that helps a lot in terms of business development if you're in a large law firm, or even business development and just building your book of business if you're a solo or a small firm attorney.
Thank you, Joy. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to Kaya. Can you tell us what advice would you give to young lawyers who maybe are in a mentoring or sponsoring type relationship where they need it to be a little bit more tailored to fit their needs? So, it might be a situation where they're feeling as if I like this person, but I'm not necessarily sure I'm getting what I need out of this relationship.
Yes, I think that mentors. Let me take mentors first. I think the mentors that you need at different stages of your life and career may change. Of course, there are those amazing unicorn mentors that you find that sort of last with you throughout your career, and I definitely have a few of those. But I think that, again, this goes back to being authentic, intentional, deliberate, open, transparent in your communications with your mentors. Talking to them about how your life career is changing, and really being open about the questions and the advice that you're seeking. And they may say that they're not the best suited to provide that advice, but they may be able to introduce you to someone who is. Or the young lawyer, the new lawyer may need to go out and find someone who may be better suited to provide the mentorship that they need at that stage of their life and career. But I do think communication is key. With sponsors, I think that is can be a little tricky to navigate sometimes, especially if you are for example, as Joy was saying earlier, having a sponsor who's a more seasoned attorney, who's internally in your organization, who's really helping you to sort of promote and advance and have career growth and job opportunities. And depending also on the size of your organization and the role that that sponsor has, again, you may want to ask them to, be open, communicate what questions and advice you need. But you may ask them. You may have identified someone else in your organization, especially if it's a big organization, who you would like your sponsor to facilitate an introduction with. And I think that is fine. I think that happens quite often, both with mentors and sponsors. But communication is key, as with everything.
Thank you, Kaya. Choi, same question for you. How would you advise a young lawyer to maybe discuss with their mentor, sponsor, um, these changing needs that they may have?
Honestly, I don't have much to add to what Kaya said besides, like she said, the communication piece is key. You have life changes. People get married, people have children, people's goals may change. You might come out of law school thinking you want to do one thing, and then you practice for a couple of years and realize it's not really what you want to do. So being able to have that open line of communication with your mentor to see whether or not they have any contacts that can help guide you to where you're trying to go. So they can't be afraid of having those conversations. And even if your mentor is steering you in a direction that you don't necessarily want to go in, you have to be able to communicate and say, hey, that's not what I really want to do. I want to do X versus Y. And even, like I said before, getting involved, seeking out your own additional mentors that may be doing what you want to do. So just don't be afraid to step outside of the box and step outside of the norm of what they may want you to do.
Thanks, Choi. Joy, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, I think that Choi and Kaya did a great job answering that question.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Okay, so at this time, I would ask for Kaya and then Choi to maybe explain what you believe are some of the differences between serving as perhaps a mentor versus a sponsor, and also how that differs from being mentored versus sponsored.
Sure. Choi, do you want to go first?
Sure. So my viewpoint of a mentorship is it's a twofold relationship. The mentor is getting they're allowing what their experience to be kind of like a guide or a assistant, or if you will, like kind of like mama bear kind of pushing the baby. That's kind of what a mentor is to me. That's what a mentor means. For me, a sponsor is someone who kind of says, hey, I'm taking you under my wing because I see something in you that was in me that got me to where I'm going. So I feel like to kind of differentiate between mentor and sponsor, I feel like a mentor is kind of there to kind of provide some sound advice to you. Well, on the other hand, a sponsor, while they're doing the same thing, they're kind of trying to get you to where they are. In terms of a mentee versus a sponsoree, a mentee is there. Both of those roles, you're attempting to get something out of the process, meaning you're trying to develop and trying to grow your career as an attorney. But in the sponsorship role, a sponsoree role, I feel as if that means that you're trying to kind of get where your sponsor is. On the mentorship, on the other hand, a mentee is just kind of getting sound advice and guidance from that mentor.
Thanks, Joy. Kaya?
Yeah, I agree with Choi. I think that the sponsor, there are, it has to be a certain kind of person to act as a sponsor. And so it has to be someone that has capital in the organization in which you're working and a willingness to advocate for you in very open, transparent, active ways. And so when I serve as a sponsor, I really take that role very seriously. I want to make sure that I'm setting up expectations for my sponsoree as to sort of what is and isn't in my purview and how I can help advance their career goals and objectives. And so I think that's a more active role in one's professional life and in one's career. And whereas a mentor, you can definitely have mentors within your own organization, and I know a lot of law firms have mentorship programs, as do bar associations and law schools and other organizations. But I think that a mentor is seen as some sort of a safe space. I think that's what Choi was referencing earlier as well, that you can go to and ask advice about sort of a whole host of things. Whereas in a sponsorship relationship, you're really talking about career advancement, job growth, professional development, and being very specific about steps and actions that you can take to achieve your goals and objectives.
Thank you, Kaya. Joy, is there anything specific you'd like to share with the audience that you feel perhaps rarely gets covered in these sorts of discussions?
Tough question. I can't think of anything right now. I would probably throw that question to Kaya and Choi first. I mean,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, I would say this, and again, I feel like we actually already have touched base on this issue, but still, it's all about authenticity. And remember that we're all people, we're all human. You don't have to be forced into a mentorship or a sponsorship situation that you're uncomfortable with. And you should also, of course, not feel like you have to follow in the footsteps of your mentor or sponsor. Vice versa, if you are a mentor or sponsor, don't force your mentee or sponsoree to do something that they're not comfortable with. Be transparent, be open, and be professional.
Thank you. Choi, is there anything you'd like to share?
So I echo Joy's comments. Authenticity and realness will get you so much further than trying to fake and be someone you're not. You have to openness and keeping the lines of communication there. I think those are key things. And not only that, but the relationship develops better when you, like Joy said, are authentic. And not try to fake and be someone you're not. I feel like a lot of times young lawyers have the tendency to try to pretend that they know things that they don't, trying to kind of fit in. It's okay if you don't know or if you have to ask questions, because trust me, your mentor or that partner in the law firm is going to look at the fact that, hey, even though they didn't know, they asked a question and tried to figure it out versus trying to play the game as if they know what they're talking about. So that authenticity piece is key.
And Kaya, I'll ask you the same question. Do you have anything
Sure.
you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think that these webinars and these discussions are really important, and I like meeting one-on-one or in groups with law students and with new lawyers, because I think that sometimes there's a misperception or an idea when they look at leaders, whether it's in the ABA or in their organization, that the goal of getting to that place where that person is, or the dreams and goals that you have in your mind, are unattainable. And the reality is that we all take one step in front of the other, and everyone has a journey and a path that they've traveled to get to where they are. And if you find the right mentor or the right sponsor who's willing to share the specific details of what that journey entailed and really guide you and advise you on your particular journey, then that path to where you want to be becomes clearer. And it's important to map that out both short term and long term. I always recommend that you should sort of map out, the next immediately sort of what you're looking to get your hands on in the next 6 months. What are your goals and objectives? And then 1 to 2 years out, what are you hoping for? And that way, as you're moving along, and those things may change along the way, and then so you update them. But as you're sort of traversing your career and your life, you can have those open, honest conversations with people that you have developed mentorship or sponsorship relationships with, and just have honest conversations. Nothing is, with the right mentor and sponsor, nothing is a secret. It's about sharing and about, sharing not only your information and your experience, but also sharing your contacts and your network to enhance the lives and careers of your mentees and sponsorees.
Thank you, Kaya. At this time, we're going to take questions from the audience. I have one question here. I'm going to direct this to Joy, since both Kaya and Choi have admitted to being extroverts. Joy, what advice would you have for someone that's introverted and finds it a bit difficult to network with others or speak aloud in situations perhaps where they need to introduce themselves, or they're feeling a bit nervous and because of the whole requirement to speak in public?
So my advice would be find a friend in your legal community that you feel comfortable going with to social events or lunch CLEs, or other bar activities. Hopefully, well, at least for me, when I have somebody else with me, it's easier to be social because you have that partner, that person that you can rely on to talk to you or at least introduce you to other people as you're feeling really overwhelmed and anxious about being in a social environment. So that's helpful, but also, I mean, if that doesn't work, if you are new to town, like when I moved from New York back to Colorado, I didn't know anybody, in the legal profession. So I started really, really small. I just found an organization that only had a few attorneys in that organization, and just really got to know them really well. I really like intimate conversations with people, and so once I got to know them, they, again, like I mentioned before, introduced me to others, and it became more and more natural. Now, granted, as an introvert, we all know it's never going to feel natural. It's going to feel forced. You're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel nervous. But it gets easier as you continue to put your name out there, and the more people that get to know you, it's almost as if you have this huge family at some point, because you have so many others that know you and who you are because you're involved, because you started small and slowly expanded your network.
Thanks, Joy. Okay, another question. I'm going to pose this to Kaya. How do you develop a mentor into a sponsor? How do you transition a mentor into a sponsor?
That's a great question. So I think sometimes it's possible and sometimes it's not possible. That person as we discussed earlier, the sponsorship relationship, that sponsor really needs to be willing to be an advocate for you, and speak up for you, and they need to have that agency and that ability to do that. So I think it can be done, and I've seen it done successfully, but it's, again, part of having that conversation. So if you've been in a mentorship relationship with someone and you think that they would be a good sponsor, or you think that they may be willing to be a sponsor for you, I think that the way to broach that is to talk about sort of why you're looking for a sponsor at this stage of your career, talking about what your goals and objectives are and what you're doing to work on those goals and objectives, the networking that you're doing, relationship building, information gathering, what skill sets you've developed, and talk to them about, ask them, have they had sponsors in their career? Have they been a sponsor to others? And then you can broach the topic of whether they would be willing to be a sponsor for you. And some people will want to be a sponsor, and some may not want to be a sponsor, and that's okay. There are people that may want to stay as a mentor, and those are valuable in their own way.
Thanks, Kaya. Next question is for Choi. Choi, when should someone start volunteering and getting more involved in the bar associations, particularly when they're perhaps trying to learn a new practice area?
So I would say get involved as soon as you possibly can. And that's subjective, and that's different for each individual because your comfort level may be different from someone else's. If you're trying to learn a new practice area, that's easy. Look at your state bar and join whatever section there is of that particular area that you're trying to learn. There's people that are in that section that have been there forever who are willing to talk to you, willing to speak with you, willing to nurture you, and help you learn those particular areas of the law. Not only that, but also take a look at the ABA. The ABA also offers a lot of substantive practice area groups that you can get involved in that are not necessarily as overwhelming. Not only that, but with the benefit that the ABA provides is the fact that you get a nationwide network. So you're not just getting the local content, you're also able to bounce ideas and get content off of lawyers across the country.
Thanks, Choi. And the final question, I will pose this to Joy, just because I think this would be more of an issue maybe for someone that's introverted. How do you handle cold calls or maybe the cold email, like to um, reintroduce yourself or kind of touch base with someone you've maybe met in an event, and you know that you're looking to foster a relationship with them, either mentorship or sponsorship?
Well, like I said before, you have to put yourself out there, and it's hard, it's difficult. I think that for some introverts, we benefit more from a life coach than some extroverts because of that. But it's you just have to do it, and definitely afterwards or before you meet with that person, give yourself time to deflate before you head back to work or back to court or your client meeting. But put yourself out there. And I've done several cold calls and cold emails to people that I needed assistance from, especially earlier in my career where I didn't necessarily have firm support. I needed to reach out to my community. It's always nerve-wracking, but it works out. One thing I've quickly realized is that the people in the legal profession, we're all in this together. We're all experiencing the same stress, the same client headaches, the same court deadlines. We're all in this together, so they get it. We all understand that we need to help each other in order to make the profession the best it can be. So It's very rare that I ever sent out a cold email or called an attorney and asked them to have coffee with me or just sit down and talk about something that they said no. But I will add this, and I think, Kaya, you hit on this quite frequently throughout your answers. Make sure when you're meeting with somebody that you have something specific you want to address. Mentors and sponsors aren't meant to get you jobs. They're meant to help guide you. So you shouldn't be just randomly reaching out to people in hope that they can connect you with a potential job opportunity. You should be meeting with that mentor or sponsor to talk about something specific regarding your career advancement or personal advancement. And if you reach out to them in that context and say, hey, I really want to reach out to you to talk about how I can learn more about business valuations and dissolutions, an attorney's gonna be like, yeah, let me share my expertise. Actually, kind of a stroke on their ego, and they get excited about sharing their knowledge. So always think about reaching out with a specific question in mind or a specific goal in mind, and they're going to be more receptive of that. But I guess a short answer to the question is, yeah, it's not easy, but just you have to put yourself out there.
Thank you, Joy. So at this time, I would like to thank our panelists for speaking today. For our audience, I hope that you receive some valuable information from the panelists to help you with making the most of your network and developing winning mentorship and sponsorship relationships. And so with that, I want to thank everyone and wish you a pleasant rest of your day.
Thanks all.
Thank you for that.